Yes, I do.
I grew up in Bowie.
Oh, all right.
Jim, you do the flea circus.
Yes, I do.
Well, tell us about how you came to do that. Are you carrying on a particular tradition of flea circuses?
The flea circus became popular around the turn of the century. And what had happened was, for years, I have always wanted to do a flea circus. And I kept trying to find someone who'd presented one, someone who had videotape or an old movie or anything of one. And thank God for the internet. A gentleman named Walter Noon actually puts out a videotape and CD on how to build your own. And then once you get it, you go, oh my God, I would never want to build this. Look at the work involved. I'm one of the people who loves the work more than anything else. The construction was more fun than actually presenting the circus in some cases. So I took his ideas. I took ideas from a pamphlet printed in the 1970s for a gentleman who did it for his daughter called Tony Palmer. And that's really the one most people find. It's about an 8-page pamphlet that talks about the flea circus. And I took some pieces of my own and put them together into an old-time flea circus. And what is amazing is grandparents who will come up and say, you know, I saw one when I was a kid. Parents will say, I've heard people talk about it, but I've only seen the cartoon. And kids who say, it can't possibly be a flea circus. And in 60 years, sorry. I think he's going to be done in a minute.
It was loud throughout.
His name is all about.
He's finishing up
So
right
you've
now.
been amazed by the stuff you've seen here tonight. Our job is done and yours is just beginning.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. You want to say a few words of conclusion?
Ready to try again?
Start over again? Okay. Jim, how did you come to get the flea circus?
I had heard about flea circuses in all the years of performing. I had never seen one personally. Grandparents had said they'd seen one, and I thought if I could present one, if I could bring it back, it's one of those things. How could you even, say that this existed? I searched and searched. I went through books in the library, really couldn't find what I wanted, and then the internet came along. There's a man named Walter Noon, and he actually puts out a videotape on how to build it, a small pamphlet, a CD of music that's in the public domain that you can use. So I got that, looked at the videotape, and I suspect that half the people who order it stop there. I decided to build it because I love to build things. I have a wonderful shop for building props. And I got that. I got a book by Tony Palmer. A gentleman wrote it for his daughter in the 70s. There was also the Ballantine book on all the animals in a circus. And I started building a flea circus. And the most amazing thing is the grandparents who come up and say, I saw one of these when I was a child. Parents who say, I heard about it from my grandparents, but I remember the cartoons, especially Tex Avery had a cartoon on it. And then there are kids who go, that can't possibly be a flea circus. And to bring them all together and to know that in 60 years, I'll be the guy that they talk about when they say, when I was a child, I saw a flea circus. And that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Is there a secret you can divulge? Is there anything, is it easy?
It's really all in the training. There have been 3 classic flea circuses presented over time. There's one where they take dead fleas and they dress them like famous people. The Smithsonian has exhibits of Abraham Lincoln as a flea. Then there's the style where they take the fleas and they harness them in little tiny carriages with brass wire and they pull them along. That seems cruel to the flea. I prefer to actually take the flea and find out what they like to do and then shade them, use the classic animal training techniques to shade them into a good act. The problem, of course, is you can only present them about twice a day, and then they have to be fed, and they feed on human blood. It does get a little draining at times.
What happens? So now, as far as the sideshow arts, do you feel like you're carrying on a particular?
This is a tradition that so few people get to carry on. The construction of a tightrope that's going to support a flea and yet show him off. Difficult to do. A diving pool for a flea. The measuring the steps is really based on how much they jump. So you have a lot of nuances in the show that they're based around your performers, and your performers only live 2 years. You have to start over again, and there's 6 months of training involved.
What now? Did you ever kind of wish you'd been at Hubert's Freak Museum?
I would like to have seen Professor Heckler. I didn't grow up in New York, so I never got a chance. So I've seen 2 videotapes on people who do it. There was a gentleman in England that used to be popular, and he had a flea circus. And then I've seen one from about the 1920s that someone had on film. And that's really all I have to compare it with.
So you're kind of, there's not many people out there doing this kind of thing.
I know of 3. Again, from the internet, what I found, there are 3 sites. There's Walter Noon, who built 2 or 3 flea circuses, and people around the country have. One gentleman built a flea circus that fits in a guitar case, which is pretty amazing. He built a flea circus for a dear friend of mine who performed it in Reno on the largest stage in the world. A stage built to make a 747 disappear. And he presented the Flea Circus because he wanted the smallest show on earth in the largest arena in the world.
Where do you go with your flea circus? Where do you get booked with the flea circus?
I started performing it in July. It took about 6 months to build. The first one I did was Artscape here. Then I did it for a run of 19 days at the Renaissance Fair and did 2 turns a day. Really an Easter egg for the show. I didn't tell anybody where it would be. I started and put it in the street, and everybody who found it sort of had a secret that they could tell no one else. They saw the Flea Circus, and they didn't know where it would be next, but they got to see it. So that was a big run. It was a long run at the Renaissance Fair, and now it's going to be events like this where they want me to present an old-style art, much like a Punch and Judy, things like that.
So it really is kind of an old-fashioned thing.
It really is an old-fashioned thing, and there are times when they call us for variety entertainment and want that little bit of flavor from 1920. The grinder with the monkey, things like that. They want that bit of flavor, and I see that that's where the Flea Circus is. I don't expect to present children's shows of the Flea Circus.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
Great.
I hope the sound was all right.
Yeah, it was good.
That was fine there.
It was great.
It's just that when people are stapling money to rent,